I'll do my very best to get this job that I so crave.
Welcome back to the Fanzone debate tournament. We're here for match number 2. We got the number 2 seed, Jacoby Bancroft, going up against the number 15 seed, Adelaide Spence. Very much looking forward to this match. Kirk, you're here on the judging desk. How you doing? And what do you think of the matchup?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, going to be a fun one. Jacoby and I have debate history, and obviously former champion, knows what he's doing. But I've talked to Spence a lot about debate as well, and I know they take this seriously, and they want to win. So if they could pull this off, I mean, major launching point for their career debate-wise. So we'll see what happens. So it'll be fun.
Yep, and across from Kirk, we have Brian Michaels. Brian, welcome back to the show. That's Cody. That's not Brian. Cody, how's it going, man? And are you excited for the matchup? This is your first time judging since the last time that the three of us were on call together, I think.
Yeah, last time we were on call, I had a lot better experience than the first time we were all on call together. We'll fully admit that. I do also have debate history with Jacoby. He once told me I was an idiot during a debate, and I about lost my mind. So that's not good in his favor, but I'm going to completely be unbiased. I think this is an interesting matchup. I've considered Jacoby top 3 in this league of debate, if I count myself, and I'm cocky, so I will. Top 3, I consider, and Spence is like a wild card that I think could throw Jacoby off of his game. So this could be like one of those that goes to the final question and Jacoby's like, what the hell's happening? Because he's better, and he's been a champion. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. It's like me versus Koho. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Let's start by talking to the lower ranked player today, Adelaide Spence. Adelaide, it's been a while since we've seen you in debate. Well, not that long, I guess, but it's been a minute. This is your first match of the season. You're going to play Jacoby. I know that's a rough draw coming into the tournament, but I think everybody's kind of put it correctly where you are kind of a wild card. You've got some good stuff up your sleeve. How are you feeling about the match?
To quote myself in the chat like 20 days ago, fuck. Yep. I don't feel great. That being said, Jacoby, Cody mentioned throwing earlier. I hope you do, because I've got like $5 on me. I'll make hella profit if I win this. That might be illegal. I don't know if we've legalized gambling in trivia, but I could use the money. So just throw some questions. Why not?
All right, let's bring in the higher seeded player, Jacoby Bancroft. Jacoby, former champion, but your last couple matches haven't quite gone your way. Looking to maybe recapture some of that magic. I believe your last match you did play Cody in a very good match, though, nonetheless. So you tend to have that thing where you come in and you're like, oh, you always say, I'm so nervous. Oh, this is crazy. And then you get into it and you start yelling and screaming and doing well. So how are you feeling going up against Spence?
Nervous, but I am always nervous. No matter what I do, I'm always going to be nervous when I do these things. But once I get into the debate, I feel like something else takes over and I just lose myself a little bit. Like if you said last time that I would get as angry and upset with Cody last time, I would have called you crazy, because I was like, I never would do that, but it did. So I do get into this and I get invested. But you're right. My last few matches haven't gone very well, so much so that I also put money on Spence to win this. We'll see what happens here. But no, I'm excited. I think this is going to be really fun. I think we picked some interesting things, and this is supposed to be fun, right? This is fun. We have fun doing this.
I always had fun doing it, but then I also got real bad stomach ulcers when I was done. So
there were 4 champions on this call.
Oh, that's all champions. You ate dinner right before this, Spence, and I was like, how do you eat before these things? And I haven't eaten for 3 hours.
Yeah. I would never eat before one of these. But anyway, we're going to get into the match. Here's how it's going to work. So the players drafted categories. Then I came up with some questions for them based on those categories. They're going to debate those questions tonight before our very souls. It is a battle for their very souls, one could say. But it's going to be fun. They're going to get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute freeform, followed by a 1-minute closing. After the main debate, Kirk, Cody and I will write on our handy dandy boards who we thought won the question. And if you get 2 votes, you win the point. First person to 3 points wins the match. So, competitors, any questions as we get into the debate?
Nope.
Okay, then let's do this thing. All right, first question is going to come from the category of American Spies. This was drafted by Jacoby. The question is, what is the best Benji moment in a Mission Impossible film? So, Jacoby, because you drafted this, you are going to get to kick this off. You have 1 minute to open your argument. When you start talking, I will come in to give you a 10-second warning.
The Mission Impossible franchise at its core is really about one thing. Ethan Hunt's doing insane feats of awe-inspiring athleticism while his support team helps him with the logistics. And Benji is hands down his best support player. Benji is at his best when he's actively helping Ethan accomplish his impossible missions and not just sitting around as a helpless passenger, which is why Benji's best moment is Benji helping Ethan run over a mile to rescue Julia while in Shanghai in Mission Impossible 3. Not only is this moment the perfect encapsulation of Benji's value to Ethan's success by highlighting Benji's skill, his humor, his bravery, and his loyalty to Ethan, but also Benji is so good in this moment that is what proves Benji has what it takes to transition from a small side tech character to the most important team member Ethan could have. So by far, this is the best Benji moment.
All right. We're going to move over to Spence, who will have 1 minute to open when they start talking.
At the end of the day, I think Benji, as Jacoby said, is a big point of service to Ethan at the whole Mission Impossible franchise and does have a lot of moments to shine for himself. I chose a scene where I think a lot of it is carried not only on him, but also Simon Pegg's actual individual acting prowess. I'm going for the scene in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation where he is wearing the bomb strapped to his chest, where the entire time you are hearing him reciting lines being fed to him by Solomon Lane, but through the whole time you're not only seeing Pegg shine as an actor of both the stern domineering of Lane's words, but also the genuine fear in his eyes and how he's able to sort of multitask that performance on top of it, elevating an already incredibly tense and riveting scene. I think that Benji is a character who deserves more of a spotlight, and being a character used only for service, I think it'd be a little bit boring and repetitive, as I'll get into later. But I think having a moment where you can truly shine on how incredible of an actor Simon Pegg is, which I think has been undervalued, is really important to add to the franchise, which can add some spice to it all.
Time. Okay. So, scene at the end of Rogue Nation, scene at the end of 3. You have 5-minute freeform. When one of you starts talking, I will throw up this for the 1 minute warning. And if anybody gets a little too carried away or long-winded or anything and is bothering me, I'm going to throw up the let's move on. So you guys have 5 minutes when one of you starts talking.
I understand why you picked your moment, because it's kind of an exciting Mission Impossible moment. But for a Benji moment, which is the question, I think it's a bad choice. I mean, Benji in this scene is captured. He's helpless, and he's not even himself throughout 95% of it, where my scene is Ethan and Benji really working together. You're highlighting Simon Pegg's acting prowess, but for a Benji moment, Benji is sidelined through all of yours, where mine, he plays an active role in helping Ethan accomplish his task.
I think the argument about Benji's being sidelined isn't really I think that's a great point, because at the end of the day, his character is sort of meant to be sidelined. Like, his idea of support, I think, is better helped by characters like Luther or Brandt, who actually have a more active thing of actually supporting the film overall. I think having a character who is basically just there to be like Ethan's +1 to everything is inherently uninteresting, whereas I'm offering a new perspective and a new light on Benji as a character that I think we should get more on, rather than a scene where you're picking a scene which has literally been repeated in another film, and it's better there in Fallout where Ethan's also running on top of buildings. That is the exact same setup and execution, but at the end of the day, I think also that one is much better.
Nope, I disagree because I think my moment is better because it's also the first one. You're saying it does it twice again, but it happens later on. This is the first one. This is the original one. This is one where Benji is operating at the top of his game and actually assisting. In Fallout, he makes mistakes, but it doesn't matter because this moment in 3 is the one where he's working in tandem with Ethan and allowing it to happen. Your moment is a great Ethan and Solomon Lane moment where Benji is there. Benji, you say like it doesn't work if he should be sidelined more. I'm confused on that argument that I think Benji should have a more active role in what Ethan is trying to do and accomplish his tasks. And that's why my scene handles that 10 times better.
I don't think the idea of servicing Ethan Hunt makes him less sidelined. It's just because he's a part of the action. I don't think it gives him any agency as a character. Like you're saying, like, yes, he is tied up. Yes, he loses that decision, but he still has to be there. And he even tells Ethan partway through of just like, don't risk your life. Don't have Elsa hold you hostage. He's trying to make sure that Ethan gets away safe. It is the moment where he takes agency of, I am ready to die. That is the epitome of a spy, where you're saying, oh, it's like top of his game in MI3. He was literally, he's not even technically a field agent yet. He's breaking code to do this. Whereas in 6, he has been training for almost a decade. And this is him at his best using high-tech technology. And carrying with Ethan works more like tit for tat rather than like, oh, you're running? Okay, oops. Like, it's less interesting.
You're negating the fact of what Benji actually does in this scene. He's a character who, at this stage in the movie, Ethan has gone rogue. He is an enemy of the state, but he knows that Ethan is the good guy who needs help, and he offers it. And in that moment, he offers so much personality. He offers his fear of even the fear that carries over in your scene, the fear of doing something wrong, which is the same fear that he shows kind of in Rogue Nation. But then he also follows through where he realizes this is the right thing, and he also gets to show his humor in my scene as well, which is important for the Benji character, I think, as well. So in my scene, that encapsulates all the fear, the dedication to Ethan, and the comedy of it, as opposed to just him repeating lines and acting with his eyes the whole time and being helpless, does not make it the best Benji moment. Your moment keeps going back to he is the least important character in that scene, because really it's Ethan and it's Solomon Lane going at each other consistently there, and Benji is just there. And the stakes of your scene make no sense at all, but I think I went on for a little while there.
You're good. I think my issue with your scene is that at the end of the day, there's enough scenes where she's accomplishing the same kind of thing that you're looking for that I'm just inherently less interested in. Again, the idea that's repeated later, but it's also the idea of, I think Benji supporting Ethan's actions are just so repeated. Like, that's literally his character's, like, not saying motivation, but like that's something that he does over and over and over and over, to the point that a lot of those moments sort of blend together with him as a character. I think this is a scene where this is the only time that Benji has done anything like this, and it stands out again because I think Peg's acting is phenomenal in the scene. At the end of the day, I think something unique stands out versus I think there's 100 moments that could pick which do a lot of similar things that you are pitching, and yours isn't even the best version of the specific action.
You keep saying like, oh, they keep doing it, but no, mine was the first. This is the first Benji scene. And as I said in the beginning, this is the Benji scene that proves that he is able to be the perfect counterpoint to Ethan and help him do whatever he needs to do. You keep saying, oh, they keep doing it better in the franchise. No, Benji does not make a mistake in this scene. He's operating at his highest level, and he's actually doing something to the plot rather than just sitting there and doing nothing. You keep hitting the point of Simon Pegg's acting with his eyes. Great. Simon Pegg is a great actor, but this isn't how great of an actor Simon Pegg is. This is the best Benji moment, and the best Benji moment helps Ethan Hunt accomplish his goal and not just be there because he got captured and has to sit there and recite lines from somebody else.
I think you're underselling how pivotal not only Peg's acting is to this, but again, I think he has an active decision of trying to tell Ethan to run away, of basically like this is him taking agency as an individual, where again, I think the idea of him being in support, he's been in support in a lot of other ways. I think that him at the opera house, where he's sort of like this unwilling follower and suddenly had to take action, is more interesting. I think him as a waiter in Ghost Protocol, of him trying to help with the diamond heist, is inherently more interesting. I think that you're picking a specific moment which is like repeated a lot as like structure of the character.
Yes, but my moment came first, and it's what defines the character so much going forward. It's why those moments.
All right, we're going to start with Spence to close. You get 1 minute when you start talking.
just because there's an originator of something doesn't make it inherently better. I think that Benji is a character who could be very repetitive and is probably like one of the weaker parts of the franchise in the idea of he keeps doing the same thing, keeps supporting Ethan over and over and over. I think a character fully designed for the support of someone else is inherently uninteresting. I am picking a moment which is truly focused on Benji as an individual, of him actively trying to help tell Ethan to run away and to stop repeating this cycle of him constantly putting himself and other people's lives in danger and says, let me die and run. Simon is an amazing actor. The way that he repeats those lines while being Lane and Benji is incredible. But at the end of the day, the reason that this is the best Benji moment is because it's the true and it's the single and only time that Benji has had tried to have the motivation of a singular person and says, I am not letting you make a decision for me. I need you to run and be safe. Time.
Okay. Ending about 10 seconds early. Let's bring in Jacoby for their closing when you start talking.
If you ask the question, what does Benji do in each of our scenes that make it the best Benji moments, then I think the answer should be clear here. In Spence's scene, Benji does nothing besides be a liability. And any argument that Spence's scene highlights that Benji is doing something singular for himself is just kind of weird. I don't see the argument there that makes the best individual Benji moment. His moment is a great Ethan versus Solomon moment, not a Benji moment. My moment of Benji guiding Ethan highlights perfectly how well these two characters work together. And it allows Benji to show off the best parts of his character, his hilariousness, his personality, his expert skills, his heart, and his loyalty to Ethan. It sets the foundation for the perfect Mission Impossible formula of Benji helping Ethan on a technical side while Ethan does something insane, and it allows both Ethan and Benji to shine separately without taking anything away from either of them. This is by far the best Benji moment. Spence said that this is the weaker parts of the franchise. Benji is one of the best parts of the franchise, and it started with this moment.
All right. We will bring in the judges.
I don't play trivia anymore. This is paper.
That's fair. That's fair.
I need to tell my 5-year-old she doesn't deserve a whiteboard. She does. Can I hear the question? Oh, it's on the. Oh, dang it! Now you're ruining my favorite part about judging.
Yeah, right. All right. Judges ready?
Yep.
Kirk's muted, but I'm assuming he said yes by the way that he lifted his board up. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going with Jacoby. I think that Spence's tactic here was interesting, and at first wasn't really selling me on the. I thought Jacoby did a great job of kind of tearing down Spence's scene. Spence actually started to kind of win me over in the closing. I thought Spence's closing was really, really strong, but at that point, Jacoby had kind of just battered in why his moment was so much better than Spence's through the foundation it lays for the character and all the stuff Spence was bringing up about like, oh, it's done later in the other movies, like in Fallout, and and Jacoby said, well, yeah, but Benji makes mistakes at that moment and he's perfect in this one. So I thought that, like I said, Spence had a really strong closing, but it was a little too late for me. I went with Jacoby. Kirk, where are you going and why?
This was a really tough one. This is honestly like one of the toughest fights rounds I've had to judge in a while. I feel like they both because they both came at it from a different angle. Yeah. Jacoby was coming with what makes like pure Benji like the best of pure Benji, and Spence was arguing, what's a unique moment that stands out from what Spence is talking or from what Jacoby's talking about. By the slightest of margins, I went with Spence, just because I think that Jacoby gave me a lot, but I just like Spence's take on it, that this was something unique where he was showing agency. We haven't seen this before, where he was, being the spy, he was willing to die. So it was super close. It was borderline coin flip, but I think I just got a little more. If it was what makes Benji great, Jacoby wins. But for this question, Spence just barely eked it out.
Great. Cody, where did you vote and why?
I think that vote has something to do with Florence Pugh, but I can't put my finger on it. What I will say, I don't fully agree that this was close. I feel like, well, I should say it matters how you took the argument. I didn't take what Spence was saying as like I thought the closing was good, but I thought what they were building on was like sand. Like I don't think there was much to hold on to because I was thinking his performance and like the battling and not thinking that character and that thing sets up Benji because there's other characters that does Benji's. I thought it was just a weird tactic to take it down, and the Benji does something first in Hero Movie and does it better in Fallout. I don't think that has much weight on it because it's best moment. It's not like the most exciting or the most thing, just the best Benji moment. And I think the person that gave me what Benji would do in a scene and like back and forth, I think it would be Jacoby. That was just my vote because I think he displayed what Benji would do in those characters and why it was an important moment to Benji.
Okay. So Jacoby wins point number 1, but we're going to move on to the second question, which was drafted by Spence in the category of musicals. The question is, what Best Picture winning musical has the best songs? So Spence, you get to kick this one off. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
I think that Chicago, which is my pick, is really interesting because I think that the films, the music, everything that ages the best is films that are set in a period because it's already sort of aged a bit. And as you get older and as things go on over time, I think there is an inherent quality which lasts over time. And beyond that, I think you have some incredible talents. I think that a lot of the times when you cast a movie musical that sometimes the actors you cast as singers aren't really great, but Catherine Zeta-Jones is amazing. I think that Renee Zellweger is a perfect Roxy Hart. John C. Reilly's rendition of Mr. Cellophane is maybe one of the best to ever been done. Queen Latifah's version, like Queen Latifah as Mama Morton, is not the most interesting character, but she absolutely kills the 2 songs she has on this soundtrack. Even a song which is not in the movie, but is on the soundtrack. It is great. There are no skips here. And Cell Block Tango is one of the greatest songs ever written in musical theater history. And the fact that it's not the best song on the soundtrack is incredible to the quality of what's being performed.
All right. So we'll bring in Jacoby. Jacoby, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think this is a hard question because we have to argue what makes the best songs in a Best Picture winning musical and how do you objectively or even subjectively do that? Well, the way that I approached this question is by thinking about what film musical not only delivered fantastic, memorable, catchy, important, beautiful, soul-inspiring songs consistently across the board, but also had those translated effectively into the film adaptation. I think that's the best criteria for this question. Both of our choices are famous musicals for a reason, but which one has the better, more diverse, more important songs that serve the story effectively and hired the best performers to do the songs justice? Well, that's West Side Story, and I don't think it's close at all. It is iconic for a reason, with the songs representing such a breadth of different feelings and emotions, and a lot of them, like Tonight, America, Maria, and others, can arguably be put on the list for best musical songs of all time for all these different reasons, and that is why West Side Story is the best musical song.
All right. Chicago versus West Side Story. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
Yours isn't even the best version of the West Side Story soundtrack. Like, I know that's not eligible, but you were actively picking a soundtrack, which is like, if I want to go listen to it, I'll go listen to the other version. Ansel Elgort aside, every single song sans Elgort on the 2021 version is better than the 1961 version.
I disagree. I think it's that timelessness that you mentioned in one of your openings. The timelessness of the factor of it starts with the original film adaptation, and that comes from the original. You get the heart, you get the soul, you get the passion, and you get the beauty from the original film. Chicago songs are all one note, in my opinion. They are mostly catchy, sexy jazz tunes, and that's it. And yeah, catchiness is important, but West Side Story songs are catchy and work to service the story and carry so much heart and passion behind them. You feel all the heartbreak and the love behind these songs, where Chicago, you get none of that.
I think that saying a soundtrack it like falls into a genre is not a bad thing. Musicals can have genres. Jazzy musicals are incredibly rare to find. You have this and Ragtime and Hadestown, and that's basically it. The fact that you are having such a unique sound in musicals is so hard. I love Stephen Sondheim. This is not some of his best score. If you're counting like the soundtrack as a whole, the overture is actively annoying. The sharp swells of the violins actively makes for a bad listening experience. On top of that, I think that Russ Tamblyn in the Jet song is actively annoying. I think that he is aggressively New York in a way that's not intuitive to a performance or good to listen to. I think on top of that, I'm sorry, I'm taking up too much time.
That's fine. Well, see, at least my songs offer a different perspective and different feelings and emotions behind everything. Chicago songs are all so similar to each other. The songs All I Care About just kind of carries over to We Both Reach for the Gun. They play into each other. And then it limps to Razzle Dazzle, which is such a lackluster dud of a song that goes on for way too long. And if you listen to them all together, it's just really boring. All of that is like that for the Chicago soundtrack, especially for the performances. Don't talk to me about the performances of the songs in it. Your movie has Richard Gere in it, singing like a third of those songs. He is ruining Razzle Dazzle and Both Reach for the Gun and all that. He drags that down, where my performers who are doing the song, who were dubbed over for it, are making it a beautiful experience and highlighting the importance of the songs. Your songs have nothing behind them.
I think, number one, I think Richard Gere is a bad dancer, really good singer. I wouldn't discredit just because he's a bad dancer that it impacts the soundtrack at all. Also, I think that you slandering All I Care About into We Both Reach for the Gun, that is a musical motif. That is Billy Flynn's character. His character has a theme and a pattern to the music that is repeated in songs that he is featured in. That is good musical writing. I think that, again, I think this is one of Sondheim's lesser soundtracks. At the end of the day, there are songs here that are actively annoying, and I think that your film, even your idea of, oh yes, they're dubbed over, whatever, that is not good to, I think if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I want to relive the magic of the movie. If you love the movie, you're getting like a bastardized version of it. You're not getting Natalie Wood. You're not getting Jim Bryant. You're getting dubbed over versions of them. You're not able to re-experience the joy of the film through the soundtrack.
The question is the best songs of the musical, and my songs are inherently better because they're offering something more to you to listen to. The Chicago soundtrack basically boils down to, I kind of want to be famous and I'm a little jazzy while doing it, and they all carry that sort of thing. Yeah, as you said, the Chicago songs carry a similar motif across all of it, but when it all sounds boring like that and it doesn't offer any variety, then it brings it all down. Look at the variety of the songs. The Maria and Tonight are the most powerful love songs of all time. G. Officer Krupke highlights the fact that these boys are in a troubled society. America highlights the immigrant issue in America and how tough it is for them, while also being really catchy and exciting. All my songs do something and are more important than anything Chicago offers.
You can say all these things, and I think at the end of the day, you're still not pitching the best soundtrack. Why would I go out of your way to listen to your soundtrack when Rachel Ziegler, Ariana DeBose, Mike Feist, the guy who plays Ricardo, Bernardo, I think that all of them are better performers. There's a better listening experience and a different soundtrack that you could be listening to. Whereas I think the idea of diversity, you are literally just putting down the idea of a theme or a tone or a genre of music. I think you're overreaching when you're saying that a soundtrack needs to expand multiple genres just to make your individual listening experience better.
I'm not arguing for best soundtrack. I'm arguing for best songs. And the songs in West Side Story are these beautiful, powerful, important songs, while Chicago songs offer nothing. They're catchy. I agree that Cell Block Tango is a really catchy song. What does that do for anything? Nothing. My songs offer the variety. They're all over the place. They offer something different. And the foundation behind them are so much stronger than anything Chicago does, which just kind of is a fun jazz thing to listen to. They're okay songs, but that doesn't mean there's anything there.
I really like the soundtrack to Chicago.
It's not.
I get like 5 seconds. I couldn't add anything.
All right, we're gonna start with Jacoby on this one. Jacoby, you have 5 minutes or 5 minutes. Ooh,
no, 5 minutes.
You got 1 minute when you start talking.
So yeah, I think both of our songs are catchy, but you need more than that to be called the best songs. Look at it more in depth. The Maria song is the soulful declaration of love with beautiful lyrics that sells the movie, that Tony would give it all up for Maria. The America song is just this firecracker. You feel all the vibrant colors just by listening to it, while also understanding the tough perspective of immigrants in the U.S. Tonight and Somewhere are two of the most exciting duet love stories of all time. I Feel Pretty is so upbeat, but it also also makes the tragedy later so much more sad. You can't do any of that with Chicago songs. They all mostly have the undertone and meaning of I want to be famous and sexy, and that's it. Yeah, Spence, I like the soundtrack too. I listen to that too. It doesn't mean they're the best songs. They get repetitive and they don't have any depth. And because of that depth and the uniqueness around the West Side Story songs that are being in it, that's what makes it the best songs in the musical. The argument that, oh yeah, listen to the other soundtrack doesn't matter because all the songs are the same and it's the best.
Time. All right, we'll bring in Spence for their 1 minute closing when they start talking.
I think that you're arguing a reductive point of saying that an album sort of repeating itself and takes away from the overall quality of the individual songs. I think that's inherently not true. Individual songs can stand out without being like repetitious of a genre or a kind of music. I think that you are arguing for Sigma Sound to have like maybe fifth best musical, and again, there's a better version of it. If I'm going to sit down and I'll listen to some amazing songs, I'm going to listen to when they're performed better, when they're performed by talent who I can actually see on screen versus people that were dubbed over because they hired bad musicians. I think that the diversity of the soundtrack that you're looking for is not inherent to what you are arguing. I think that the best individual songs are to a musical, which you are not hearing that type of music. I think that Funny Honey, When You're Good to Mama, Cell Block Tango, We Will Reach for the Gun, they are different enough that they can stand out without being like, oh, samey, that's inherent to your argument. I think that is not true. Just because the movie or the musical or the soundtrack has a consistent tone doesn't take away from the individual quality or enjoyment of the overall everything. Also, Candor Dab's best musical, nothing matches its quality.
Okay. All right. Bring in the judges. All righty then. And all that jazz. All right. Cody, you're kicking this off.
So this was interesting. Because Best Picture winning musical has the best songs. Not the best who like sings them. Like, there's a lot that you can take into credit of this, but if you just break down the songs, it was like a lot of albums and a lot of like the best version of this comes from someone else. I don't think that matters when it comes to best songs. Like, if somebody else is singing it, okay, but I know you're taking it from this. If it's still good, it's still good. I had to go with JB, not Justin Bieber, Jacoby Bancroft, because I just feel like though there was a part where it was like completely lost. Like, it was a complete loss in both people's fight. And then Jacoby took like a minute and said, America, Officer Krupke, blah, blah, blah. This meant this meant that. Tonight, I feel pretty like laid everything down on the table and just was like, this is why my songs are. They travel this way and that way. I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, why it's the best songs, because I think that was the most time spent on the actual songs. So Jacoby got my point for that.
The patchy part in my beard is really coming out tonight on this.
Looks good.
Looks pretty rough.
Good.
Weirdly enough, I also went with JB. That's all I wrote on my board as well. That's usually my go-to is the initials on the second one. I feel bad for Spence because I think that they did their best with what they had. It is a tough question. But when you draft like best picture winning musicals, there's only so many to go from. And so I think they did the best they could with the movie they had. And they actually, like, to be completely fair, I've seen Chicago. It's been years, but they convinced me that Chicago has good songs, has good performances and whatnot. But I think Jacoby just at its core laid out, and I was waiting for Jacoby to make the point, and he finally did, of saying the songs are the same in the 2021 movie. So just because they're performed by different people doesn't matter. And he finally said it, and that kind of sealed the deal for me on like, yeah, he's right. The songs at their core are what the question is about. So I thought both did well, but I think Jacoby just etched it out. So Kirk, your vote doesn't count. Where would you go and why?
I also went with Jacoby. Jacoby said it best. Is a tough one because it's very subjective, but I drilled down on the same thing Cody did, where he broke down like this is why this song matters. This is why this song is important. This song has life beyond the musical to it. Where I don't think Spence retorted on that or gave me anything similar with the Chicago songs. I was getting names of songs, but I wasn't hearing, why those individual songs were great, like Jacoby was giving us. So, and I also did think Spence got a little lost in the weeds with the 2021 version, focusing on that a little too much. But it was well fought. But I think Jacoby just, in a difficult question, was able to give more ammunition.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to the next question. Spence does need to hit this in order to stay in it. It's an interesting question. I kind of want to see what Kirk's reaction is going to be when I say it. It's in the category of actors and actresses. And the question is, what actor or actress is way too overpraised? Oh, man. All right. So, Jacoby, you drafted this. That means you get to kick it off. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
I think a good actor's job is to disappear inside the roles they inhabit, to deliver unforgettable characters, no matter what the situation, and bring something slightly different to each role. With that in mind, I think Robert Downey Jr. is way too overpraised. Let's be very clear here. I don't think RDJ is a bad actor. I just think he's an actor who has really only found success in this century by being himself. He does not challenge himself. He does not push himself. And it's clear he doesn't quite know what to do with himself now that his iconic Tony Stark role is done. I don't disagree that RDJ was absolutely perfectly cast as Tony Stark, but I think the love of the character and the love for RDJ himself and the massive popularity for the MCU conflated opinions about his acting abilities to the point where there was a lot of debate and discussion about him being snubbed for an Oscar nomination and win for Endgame. The highest paid, most high-profile actor in the world for about that 10-year chunk should probably be a phenomenal actor, and RDJ was coasting on his personal charisma, and that makes him a little bit overpraised.
Time. Okay. Spence, we're going to move over to you. You got 1 minute when you start talking.
Don't you love actors who have charisma? What if I offered you a 6'4" walking stick who just plays the character of Sherlock Holmes for 10 fucking years? Benedict Cumberbatch is an inherently uninteresting actor who I think doesn't offer really a lot of interesting performances. Again, I think it's not a movie, but I think that he has inhabited the character of Sherlock Holmes into every single performance he has ever given. He has no range to speak of. He is just dryly quippy and doesn't offer a lot of depth into his roles. I think he's also an actor who is very replaceable. There's not a single film I've seen him in where it's like, yes, that's the perfect actor for that. No, he's an actor who I think has not a lot of range. Like, he is a very flat one note in personality who I think in his better performances, quote unquote, benefits more from strong writing than strong individual performances. Downey Jr. He's fucking great. I don't have anything else I can add, but yeah, Doctor Strange in the Multiplex of Madness is great. I think y'all should watch it again. That's it. Yeah, I'm just being a dick.
Interesting. At the end of that was weird.
Thanks, Spence.
5 minutes freeform. Go.
Who started last time? Did you start or I start?
I think you did.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah. I think Robert Downey Jr., like you said, he has natural charisma. I think that's important for an actor to have, to the point that, like, you mentioned Iron Man. Yes, he's great for that. The point that he had to literally improvise all of that based off of his own natural ability to act and be someone beyond himself. I think that's incredibly hard for an actor. I think improvisation is inherently underrated as a performer.
Yes, but I'm saying that what it did when he played this role for himself, that was all he offered there. All your arguments about Benedict Cumberbatch not stretching any sort of range is preposterous to me. I mean, the 2-time Academy Award nominated actor for very different roles as Alan Turing and the Power of the Dog cowboy thing are drastically different roles. And yes, he may bring a serious kind of cockiness to his roles, but he does it with a variety of every different ways. Every role that Robert Downey Jr. has brought into this has always been the same Robert Downey Jr. So the fact that you saying that Benedict Cumberbatch doesn't have the range, I think is a little crazy.
Both of the noms you named for him is just a twink who hates his sexuality. Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for playing Charlie Chaplin and a black guy. There is not anything close to similar to that. I think beyond that, he also has performances like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Zodiac and Hearts and Souls, which are drastically different performances from what you think of him as a natural charisma Iron Man guy. Like, I think there's so much more to ask of for those roles than Benedict Cumberbatch, who I don't think has elevated any of the material that he's been given.
Robert Downey Jr. is doing the Tony Stark in everything because he is RDJ. RDJ is Tony Stark, and Tony Stark is RDJ, and that plays through in all the roles that he gets to play himself. And that has proven that when he tries to stretch himself in a more serious thing, like Doolittle in The Judge or like Due Date, that he kind of either does the same thing or he does something terrible. Whereas opposed to Benedict Cumberbatch, who also has kind of a quirky, arrogant self thing that Robert Downey Jr. also has, he is able to stretch himself and do more interesting things. The fact how you described both the Oscar nominations, but the fact that they are kind of similar in the same, but are also two very different versions of that same character, prove his range and prove why he should have been nominated, and prove that he is not overpraised, that he is a cherished actor and deserves to be so, while RDJ has struggled to do anything else after the MCU because he can't do anything else.
I think you're focusing a little bit too much on the idea of just like, oh, it's Cumberbatch is like, oh, the same character, but the range is like, no, it's just like a little bit more openly depressed. I think that Downey has the ability of just like he's been pigeonholed into one role for over 10 years. But I think you're overlooking the fact like he has the build of a great character actor. He has bit parts and Good Night and Good Luck. Chef, I think that him and The Judge is underrated. He's not leaning on that natural charisma. He has so much more to offer in the range of an actor, whereas I think Benedict Cumberbatch has had a shorter history of film for him to prove himself. And his idea of bit part is 1917, where it's just very stern and stoic of like, get the order. That's not an interesting actor for me.
He fits the role that he is cast in, which is why he works for 1917. But then if you compare the sternness to 1917 and then the goofy Grinch voice that he does as the Grinch, or even his crazy, wild motion capture performances in big budget franchises, it proves that this actor can do a bunch of different things and succeed in all of them. You keep saying bit parts, and RDJ can show up in bit parts. Yeah, because if he's in anything longer than a bit part, it doesn't work. And he just delves back into something that RDJ has always sort of done before. So that's why you got to look at larger projects and what they're doing outside of these roles. And for both of our actors are beloved, but I think that they're beloved for kind of the wrong reasons. RDJ is beloved for being RDJ. Benedict Cumberbatch is beloved for being a good actor across a lot of different things.
I think saying that he's only going to bit parts is insane. I'm giving you. He was Charlie Chaplin. He's amazing there. He's like the third lead of Zodiac, and he's fantastic there. He carries Kiss Kiss Bang Bang with Val Kilmer giving the performance of his fucking career. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is literally, he is stealing the Iron Man archetype. He is just playing Robert Downey Jr., but worse. He is taking everything Robert Downey Jr. is trying to do in the MCU and failing masterfully at it, while also having worse extra performances outside the franchise.
As I said in my opening, that yes, RDJ could have started out with something interesting, but after the MCU, after everything happened there, he fell into the archetype of not doing anything else. And yes, Doctor Strange does fall into the similar archetype as Tony Stark, but then he's able to branch off and do something else. The movies you name, like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, he's RDJ. All those things that he's in, he is RDJ in these movies. And that's why he should not be praised as an actor, as a performance, because he hasn't done anything since Chaplin that you've named twice, 30 years ago. It doesn't matter for that when it's so long ago, because now he's just coasting on his RDJ personality, while Benedict Cumberbatch is out seeking complicated, challenging, different, varied roles and succeeding in them.
Since 2008, he has done Tropic Thunder in the same year. He has done The Judge, and he hasn't had time because he's been stuck in the MCU. I think the potential of this actor has to go before that even. Benedict Cumberbatch is a newer commodity to Hollywood, where he hasn't really had the time to explore those roles, or RDJ hasn't had the time to do that because of his contracts. Benedict Cumberbatch has had the time because he hasn't been in the MCU as long, and he just puts out bad performances one after another.
Time. All right, Spence, we're going to start the closings with you. You get 1 minute when you start talking.
I think pigeonholing RDJ and just saying, oh, he was good before Iron Man is an inherently bad argument. I think there's so many more possibilities of him as an actor. Just because he's been pigeonholed into a franchise now doesn't take away this talent that he's had prior to becoming a movie star. I think he has the possibility of re-achieving that greatness once he's outside of that. I think even within that 11-year time span, he still put out a few great performances. And even as Iron Man, he has been asked for range. I think Benedict Cumberbatch overall has never had the opportunity to show prowess. He's been given these hefty or deeper roles, and he offers nothing to them. Any performance where he has been quote unquote good or considered worthy, his 2 Oscar nominations are benefited from a good screenplay, which he has never been able to elevate beyond what is there on the paper. There are other actors who could do the better job than him. At the end of the day, if you are saying that Robert Downey Jr. is bad for being pigeonholed into the Iron Man, Benedict Cumberbatch directly copied that performance and is worse about it. If RDJ is bad, Benedict Cumberbatch is inherently worse. That's it.
Okay. We're going to move over to Jacoby for his closing argument. 1 minute when you start talking.
Having RDJ and Cumberbatch against each other is kind of great because this foundation is, you can use their MCU characters as a base and then build out to examine their acting abilities to see who's really overpraised. Both Tony Stark and Stephen Strange are like these arrogant geniuses striving to be the smartest quipsters. Yes, and both actors played this part perfectly and were praised for it. But outside of that, RDJ was the same character and personality in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, in his Sherlock franchise, in Due Date, and proved how mediocre he was when he tried to stretch himself in more serious, straightforward dramas like The Soloist, The Judge, and the awful Doolittle. Cumberbatch has successfully stretched himself to Oscar caliber movies and performances, playing intense, sympathetic, kind of tragic, scary roles, but also knows how to make goofy popcorn franchise films with motion capture performances, as well as voice work for multiple animated projects where he's different in everyone, yet still incredible. We have let our love for RDJ the person, and even like Tony Stark the character, overshadow the fact that RDJ has had trouble doing anything else, and that's why he's overpraised. Benedict Cumberbatch has taken that archetype and expanded on it better.
Expanded on it better. Strike it from the record. Okay, let's bring in the judges. Cody's just ready to go.
I think Kirk's still deliberating.
Yeah, I am too.
Hold on. I'll take more time. I'll change my vote.
Oh, man.
This is a very interesting question. So who's ready for March Madness? Me? Cool.
Oh, man. This is a hard one. Are you ready, Tim?
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I know I'm not going first, but I do want to point out that in the middle of the fight, I wrote on the corner of my board Doolittle, because I just think the fact that movie exists is fucking hilarious. I saw it opening day at like 9 a.m. with Maggie and Tyler Butler, and it was a magical experience.
He climbed in a dragon's asshole.
Kirk, you were kicking us off on this one.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy.
No, it's fine. This was tough because we got into a lot of different discussions about these actors and who they are and what they can do and when and why they do it. There was a lot of focus on who was overpraised and why or why not. Again, it was tough, and I could have went either way. But what I ultimately would do, I ultimately gave to Spence, because I think Jacoby's one argument was that RDJ is overrated because he's one note in MCU. And I think Spence did enough to shoot that down. And once that was gone, Jacoby didn't really have anything left to hang his hat on. So I don't think it was a great fight either way, but 49-51, I'm going with Spence.
Cody.
So I thought this was a really interesting question. I'm so glad you wasted your ammo on this one and not on one of my fights. So I appreciate that. Because this is tough. I don't think it's a bad question. I think it's a tough question.
Yeah.
We got into the thing of like who's a better actor, like, and who's done like shit and who doesn't, like who gets praise. I think what ended up happening was because I was going to ask you for clarification, but since it's not in the question, I have to go off of, like, is this for a certain time period? Because Jacoby smartly focused on the end of Junior's career at this point and didn't focus on the 30 years prior, like the 20 years prior, which I didn't know if was a great idea. But, like, I think Spence was able to sell it. I voted for Spence, just to clear the suspense. Spence was able to describe, like, the career and the performances that maybe have led to the praise that he gets, but not, like, it may not to the level of over. And I think it's hilarious that these are the two that are going against it, because they're exactly the, like, in the MCU, like, where you could lean. I thought it was a little close, but I wish it was, like, more focused on, like, I wish Jacoby would have, instead of, like, talking about, like, Doolittle and the thing, he would have driven in the fact that in game, he gives the same performance he has since Iron Man 1, and they're thinking that's Oscar worthy. Like, that's crazy. If that would have been, like, the driving point of the praise, and the if he would have focused maybe on the money and stuff like that, I think that would have been like, this man walks around and can do anything because of the name of Iron Man, not what his past works has, and that's why his praise is so high. I just think it was a misstep on we're focused on works and acting ability instead of praise.
Mine is less dramatic at this point because I put I hate this at the bottom because I don't know, maybe I misheard it or everything. Like, Kirk was like, I thought it was bad both ways. Like, I thought it was pretty decent, and so that's why I struggled. So I said I hate this, and I voted for Spence. Which Spence got a clean sweep, which is insane. But no, I thought it was good. I think both players did really well. It was 41 or 49-51 for me too. It was just, I thought it was good. And I thought that at the end of the day, like, Spence made as ridiculous of a point as it is when Jacoby was like, Benedict Cumberbatch has been nominated for 2 Oscars. And Spence was like, he's been nominated for 2 Oscars for playing a gay guy. And RDJ was nominated for 2 Oscars for playing Chaplin in a black dude.
I knew I was stuck after that. I heard that.
I thought that was fucking brilliant. That's great. So, yeah, I voted for Spence. You guys said a lot of, Cody specifically said a lot of what I kind of thought. So, Spence gets the point, which means we're moving on to the final question of the match. It was drafted by Spence in the category of Star Wars. The question is, what character from the sequel trilogy would make the best spinoff? So, Spence, you get to start this off. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
I'm going to be political and try to be as vague about it as possible. There's a film I really love called The Rise of a Leader, a Child of a Leader, which is basically about how a fascist dictator can sort of change and how you see their evolution over time, going from an innocent child to one of the most terrifying people imaginable. I think that is a great structure for Darth Vader. And how do we see that? How about we see it from the person that he sort of birthed as both his best friend and his son? I'm talking about C-3PO. I think that there is a great quality to him that can offer to, like, a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern style story, where we see him evolve and witnessing the rise of one of the most terrifying people in all of this world, fiction, anything. And basically saying, how does this innocent child become this fascist, terrifying dictator? I think that there's also non-canon stories that you go through, like Thank the Maker, which directly gives context to C-3PO's place in the original trilogy story in relation to Darth Vader and Anakin and knowing everything about him. I think that you could do a lot of bits about flashing back and seeing how Woody Norman can play like a young Anakin on Tatooine, or how Gabriel LaBelle can play like maturing Anakin dealing with Jedi Order and the gray areas and moral quandaries within. I think there's so much to offer through the introspection of his best friend.
All right, we're going to move over to Jacoby, who has 1 minute when he starts talking.
I think the 3 most important things about creating a spin-off around a character from the sequel trilogy is to 1, don't limit yourself to a story we're already super familiar with. 2, pick an interesting and relatively unknown but compelling character that you actually want to spend time with. And 3, don't forget to have some fun. Maz Kanata would be an amazing Star Wars spin-off movie. She's a character introduced as having this very long history with the Force and both the light and the dark side, but also has all these connections to the underworld and with people throughout the entire galaxy. Plus, she wasn't utilized enough in the sequel trilogy, even though she was played by the fantastic Lupita Nyong'o. So a spin-off would work on every level and can go in almost literally any direction and still be interesting, all because Maz Kanata is such a compelling character. When you hear about a Maz Kanata spin-off, you're presented with possibility and intrigue, which is vital for the Star Wars universe right now and is what we should be making spin-offs about and exploring all these different things that we could do.
Time. All right, Maz Kanata versus C-3PO. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
You picked a character who has not only been mined and utilized to death in like 10 movies already, but also showing us his past, present, and future already. But you also picked a character whose main trait and personality quirk is to be incredibly annoying and a worrywart and a complainer. C-3PO only works in small doses, and a spin-off centering around him would be unbearable. Plus, your pitch is that it's telling the story we've already told with Darth Vader.
I think that you're disregarding the fact that there is some subtlety that we haven't been able to mine from the Star Wars saga. I think that George Lucas has written a pretty like blunt, in-your-face type of story through the prequel trilogy. I think that shows like Andor have shown that there's some subtlety that can be found from the politics of the Star Wars saga. You are picking a character who has like 4 lines of context dialogue. You're saying that she has light and dark force. That is not set up in the film. She has no backstory other than like, oh, vagary. I'm giving you a fully fleshed out pitch. You are saying, oh, we could do a thing.
I'm giving yeah, exactly, Spence. I'm giving a character who we haven't been mined and we could learn more about. She is 1,000 years old and has this great history with it. If we wanted to, we could get out of this 60-year period that Star Wars keeps telling stories about and tell something 1,000 years ago at the birth of the Jedi and the Sith. And that's interesting, as opposed to whatever you're saying about C-3PO, who is an annoying character, by the way, that's why he's a side character, because he's not a main character. And the fact that you want to explore Darth Vader more?
I think it's exploring Darth Vader, who is one of the only characters who really matters in the franchise, who carries the dramatic heft of everything in the universe. You're picking someone who has no context, and you're saying like, oh, we could do literally anything. I would love like a more specific pitch about what you want to do with her character, because I think that this version of C-3PO, who you're like, oh, is annoying. We can do anything. We like. This is a character who has evolved over time, has existed for over 60 years, who can have a change of personality, who can have some new depth to their character that we're not getting because they're sidelining the entire time. I want to know what from Maz is inherently interesting as a lead character in this movie.
I understand that Maz hasn't been explored a lot, but look at what we do know about her. One, as I already mentioned, 1,000 years old, that she has a very deep connection with the Force. But if we want to get away from the Force, like kind of what you want to do with this Andor political fascist rise that you mentioned, she is also a pirate queen and a smuggler. She has a collection of all these ancient antiques from across the universe. How did she get those? What is her role as a smuggler in this galaxy, both pre-Empire and post-Empire after everything has collapsed? There are so many directions that you can go. The fact that you want to be like, oh, she isn't explored, that's why we shouldn't have a spin-off about her, is baffling to me. No, let's give it to C-3PO, who we know everything about, who does not change because he is a droid, and center it around, let's learn more about Darth Vader that we haven't learned about in 10 movies. It's crazy. Yeah, I agree with you, Spence. We don't know much about Maz Kanata. I want to learn more, don't you?
I think that you're offering such a broad spectrum of time that it's hard to really focus on like, oh, what's the best thing to offer? You're offering like, oh, she's a smuggler, but she's a pirate queen. Then let's get a fucking Solo too at that point. You're offering, I think you're like, this is a character who I don't think has a lot to offer. If you want an older character, you have Yoda, who I think has more context. I think you go smuggler, you have Han Solo, you have Kira, you have Beckett. There's so many more. You can do more interesting things there. Oh, okay, cool. She also fucked Chewbacca. Do we want like a 50 Shades of Grey style movie for that? I think you're offering such a broad spectrum of time that I would honestly be interested in something more specific to pitch. If there's a specific story that you would like more, other than saying there's all these different options, so you're going to end up being underwhelmed and be like, oh, you didn't do this or this or this. I think if you're able to find one thing and say this is what I want to see from the character, I think that's more of an interesting pitch than just anything, because she's done everything ever.
Exactly, though. But the question is, who would make the best spinoff? And I'm saying Maz would make the best spinoff character because you can go in any different direction with it, because the tidbits we have learned about the character are fascinating and could branch off into exciting new directions. Your spinoffs are just being like, yeah, why don't we just do Yoda? It's because we've done all this before. And you're thinking like, yeah, you're coming in with a very developed pitch about C-3PO, the most annoying character on the planet, and but his focus on watching Darth Vader rise on the sand planet of Tatooine again. What are you doing with your spinoff? That doesn't work at all. You need a Maz Kanata spinoff to do anything else. Yes, I don't have a very specific hyper pitch besides some broad ideas, but I'm saying you could go in any direction, and that's what makes it so great.
Your any direction is just the same thing we've been getting Star Wars for the past 30 years. It's just fun exploration. I'm offering a new layer to it. I think the reason that Star Wars has sort of revitalized interest in the past 5 years is because of Andor and because of Rogue One and because of all these different ways that they've viewed Star Wars. You're saying, I want a fun movie. I was saying, imagine your best friend for 30 years becomes one of the most terrifying people in the whole galaxy and deal with that moral quandary of, did I do this? Am I the problem? I think there is so much more dramatic heft to this kind of story than just big broad action.
Yeah, I want to see that through C-3PO.
All right, Jacoby, you are closing first on this one. You get 1 minute when you start talking.
The best thing about focusing on Maz is the possibility. It can literally go anywhere. Spence is saying that's a bad thing, but that's the best thing about that. Be about anything and still be amazing, because at the forefront of this project is a compelling character. One of her best quotes, I am no Jedi, but I know the Force, is such a small line, but could set up a Maz movie about the Force and the Jedi Order 1,000 years ago, so we can get out of telling Jedi stories in this 60-year time span. She's known as the Pirate Queen, so you can tell a story about smuggling and the seedy underground of the galaxy. You can make a spinoff about, as I said, her collecting all her priceless artifacts, Indiana Jones style. You can make a spinoff about her resuming her smuggling and resistance fighter days after her castle is destroyed in Force Awakens and dealing with that Union dispute hinted at in Last Jedi. There are so many options, and that's so much better than following the unbearable C-3PO, who would offer nothing new. You're saying, let's add depth to C-3PO pick characters. What depth can we learn after 10 movies of him being like, oh no, what am I going to do? That would be a bad movie.
All right, we're going to bring in Spence for their 1 minute closing when they start talking.
Number one, Jar Jar is more annoying. Bad take. Number two, I think there's something inherently more interesting about diving into a universe that we've already explored so much and getting a new perspective on it. I think, what if C-3PO's anxiety comes from the fact that he feels regret and shame from not stopping one of the most terrifying things you can imagine? I think that there is so much more that I think that the idea of taking a character who is so vague and so unexplored, you have no idea where to go with her. You're not even offering a concrete pitch to this because you're saying, anything is possible. Then you can do that with any character. You could offer a new character. Maz is no individual identity for you to argue about. I'm offering C-3PO and literally leaning into his entire being and saying, where does that come from? Does it come from the regret and the feeling of failure of your fucking father becoming Space Hitler? That is so much more possibility as a story that you are falling into the same comfort traps of every single Star Wars story ever told outside of the TV series from the last 2 years of, pew pew gunfight stealing shit. That is not interesting. I want new things in the Star Wars franchise.
Time. Okay. We're going to bring in the judges. All right.
Who goes first? You?
Yeah, I go first.
Okay, because I have a lot to say.
You're going last.
Oh, Kirk, we tried.
All right. Judges ready?
Yeah.
A question for the panel. Am I the only one that thought Andor was kind of mid?
I haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it.
I thought it was
Yes.
I thought it was kind of mid.
I thought Nick loved it.
To be fair, so was Obi-Wan was also kind of bad, and everyone loved it. But I guess I hate Star Wars now.
Obi-Wan is awful. Andor's great.
Thank you, Jacoby. Thank you on the Obi-Wan thing. I think it's really bad. Okay.
The colors are cool.
Let's just make movies again.
Yeah, I like movies. That's fair. Mandalorian's great. Okay.
My favorite.
All right. Bad Batch is also good. I'm sorry. Okay. Here's the deal. This was weird. This was taken in a way I wasn't expecting. I went with Mr. Bancroft, and the reason why. I see what Spence was doing, and I think that's the the thing that I can sum up is sometimes the like unsuspecting, like, ooh, they're never gonna see this coming pick just isn't the best pick. And sometimes the best pick is just the best pick. A Finn, a Rose, a Holdo, a Snoke, a fucking Babu Frick, I think might have been better than a C3PO. I think the pick at the end of the day was just not a great pick. And I appreciate the guts and the pitch because clearly there was a lot going into it. And I think I actually agree with what Spence was saying of like looking at parts of the franchise from a new perspective. I like that pitch. I just think 3PO is a bad character to do that. And I think their pitch I think Jacoby very aptly proved that. And I think Jacoby is I wasn't asking for a pitch, but Jacoby's just like, here's what you could do. Thought was great. So Jacoby really worked for me on this one. Kirk, where are you going?
Yeah, this was tough for me. Another one tough one. These guys did really great this round. Because Spence was strong out of the gate with just the idea of their pitch, and just that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern kind of idea was really strong. But as we went on, Jacoby had good ideas for Maz, and he didn't have a pitch, but it wasn't a pitch question, and there's a lot of possibilities for Maz, and maybe C3PO is not the best character. So I was going back and forth, and what ultimately sold it for me was during the closing. When Spence said, Maz can do all these things. So if she can do anything, then she can be basically anybody. So that kind of swung it to Spence for me. And I also kind of like Spence's idea of, taking everything, everything old is new again, kind of take with this where we're going to get something new with an old character. And do something that we haven't done before. So, again, it was a close one. They both did well, but I just gave Spence the edge.
Cody, you gotta fix your face, man.
Maybe cam off.
I'm sorry, I did not expect that. Like, there was a lot of things I thought that was not what I thought. So my bad. You're allowed to vote for who you want.
Go ahead, Cody. Go ahead.
So I watched a movie probably in the past year. It was called Roadhouse. And to spoil Roadhouse, there's a scene where the person Dalton rips the throat out of somebody. Jacoby entered the 5 minutes and ripped Spence's throat out, like straight, just like as somebody that debated Jacoby and got to the point where it was, hey, you're stupid. Like it was coming close. In this one, and then that's no shot at Spence. It was just how frustrated Jacoby was getting, but Jacoby was coming back with just barb because it's like we're exploring the same thing. Where yours is we're just rehashing, and Jacoby was like sitting there and was like, "You're giving me C3PO." Like, and it got to a point where like maybe he deals with like self-reflection and like has to go through a counsel. Like it was like this weird like maybe I caused my father, and I thought like then I got thinking of like a counselor in session. I went Jacoby Bank. I don't think it was close by any means. I just think Jacoby just like destroyed, and it was a constant defending why C3PO was the correct choice. And then Jacoby was like, my world is open. I can do like 7 spinoffs of this one character, and you're telling me we're going back to Vader in the desert, and that's just was really tough.
All right, so that means your winner is Jacoby Bancroft. We are going to start post-match interviews. We'll start talking to Spence. Spence, I think you did great today. You got a clean sweep on a category that I believe wasn't it was not your category that you drafted. So that's really impressive to come out and get a clean sweep in a category like that. And then you got votes on 2 of the other questions that you didn't get points on. So I think overall a good performance. How are you feeling about the match at the end of the day?
I mean, if you couldn't tell, I walked into at least the beginning. The first 2 I felt really shaky about. I had other matches going on now, and I just kept forgetting. And I finally sat down to make notes. And I'm just like, I realized I didn't pick great. That's probably where I fucked up first. I have fun debating, and I think my style of debate can work. But I also went against an opponent who arguably does the same thing, but 100 times better. So I was fucked no matter what. I'm just proud I got a clean sweep. Like, to me, that's the sign of like, maybe I could have some prospects if I use my brain correctly before the match starts.
That's fair. Is there any like choice you would have made differently or anything? Like, I know you said that you like looked back and you made some like maybe mistakes in the picking of the answers, but now looking back at the whole debate, is there anything you would have debated maybe a little bit differently?
An hour before this started, I was told, what if I pitched C-3PO and R2-D2 as a buddy cop comedy, and opening it like Hunt for Red October, where you're zooming on R2-D2 and the beeps turn into Danny DeVito being like riffing and being dumb as shit. Maybe I should have gone that way. Maybe it got me some points.
Oh my god. I don't
hey,
know.
I'm rolling here. It's comedy. It's money.
Holy shit. Okay.
Then I just started zapping.
Spence, this doesn't mean that you're out of the tournament, but like I said, I think you played well today, and you've always played well in your matches that you've had. Is there anybody that you want to debate the next time you come back?
Someone I like and someone who's bad. That's like the perfect circle. I've won against Holtzman, who's now in the top 2, 3, 5, whatever. Like, he's really good. And Joe, I was so close to Joe. If I could face Joe again, I think that'd be really fun.
What if I could give you maybe like he's in the tournament, so
give me like,
I might have something for you, but I'll tell you off call. Tell you off call. So we'll talk after the match is done. But great job, Spence. We're gonna bring in Jacoby. Jacoby, you're moving on to round number 2. You got your first win in a minute. I was looking earlier. So like we said at the beginning, you did lose to Cody last year. And then before that, you played against Rue and lost that match. So, and then I think, did you lose to Kirk before that then? So this is your first win.
Thanks for all that.
I'm sorry. No, but this is a good thing. And you played great. And you've always, like I said to Spence, you've always played great as well. And this time it worked out in your favor. You didn't have to go to the speed round. How are you feeling about your performance overall?
Yeah, that's great. That was scary kind of there in the sense, like I felt like I had that last question, but like the other questions, like thought they were really close. Like, and again, like I probably got a little bit lucky here because we know with Spence's second question, like if they had more prep time there, then that could have been bad. Like I'm sure they would have dismantled my arguments much better if it wasn't so on the fly. So that was really scary there. And I was floundering in that overpraised question like a lot. Like I had nothing to hang on to there. And then they just dismantled me at every turn for that. But it was fun. A lot. I had a lot of fun, and it was invigorating. It was exciting, and I'm looking forward to what's next.
Here's what's next, Jacoby. You're going up against either the number 10 seed, Richard Schwartz, or the number 7 seed, Robert Kastner. Those are your options.
Interesting. I've debated Schwartz before, I think, a long time ago. So I guess out of that, I would gladly debate either of them, but I guess since I like new people, so hopefully Robert Kastner pulls out the win.
All right, sounds good. Jacoby, I look forward to seeing you in round 2. Great job today. We'll see you next time. Let's get final thoughts, starting with Cody.
Yeah, I want to say I did use the Roadhouse comparison, and that's not because Spence is bad. I just thought that's how handily Jacoby handled it. I think, again, they talked about betting odds. Again, if you don't have Jacoby circled as one of the finalists in the bracket, I don't know what you're doing. He is one of the most diligent, like how he preps a question is really outstanding. I hate playing against him, but I like watching him play. So it's exciting. And I think Spence with the proper prep can definitely come back and beat people. Like to win a point on a clean sweep against Jacoby, and
That's
then
huge.
also convince, Kirk on 2 questions. I think that's that's the recipe for success in this league. Like, if you can convince probably the best person debating in this league, Kirk, that you sold him on the answer, I think that's exactly where you need to go. And again, it won't be shown on call, but yeah, that question too. If there's more prep or whatever, we could be going sudden death. There's no question about that.
Kirk, your final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Jacoby's proved why he's a former champion here and why he's one of the favorites in the tournament. And his success is no surprise. But I think Spence, even the ones that you say got a clean sweep, and I think they were all close fights. Spence is definitely somebody that they tweak their game a little bit. They're not too far off from making a run in this league.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us today at Fanzone Debate. I want to thank Kirk and Cody for judging this one with me. Thank you to Jacoby and Spence for playing. I've been Tim. We'll see you guys next time on another debate. In 2 weeks' time, we have got Cameron Holtzman going up against Andrew Barr, the number 3 in the 14 seed. So that is coming up in a couple weeks. We'll see you guys then for that. Until then, have a great night.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.